Call the regular City Council meeting of November 21st, 2018 to order at 7 p.m. Please join me in pledging the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland.
Here.
James Burton.
Here.
Ken Jones.
Here.
Jeff Guard.
Here.
Melina Meyer.
Here.
Ann Schaefer.
Here.
David Allison.
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, thank you. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to point out a couple of things. One on item 15, ordinance 1172, that's actually going to be a roll call vote. And then the executive session order, I got those mixed up. We're going to do the city clerk's evaluation first and then the city managers. So those are just kind of administrative changes. So
move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motions, the agenda is approved with those two modifications noted. Does council have any conflicts of interest to declare? Okay, I don't hear any. Communications by and petitions from visitors. We don't have any guest speakers today. Are there any audience comments regarding agenda items on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, CCMC.
Some of the things that are going on at the hospital. I've mentioned before that we have a new electronic health record system that we started implementing back in August. We're continuing to move through that process. Anytime a hospital goes live with a new system, there are a lot of problems. We've had our share of them. We're continuing to work through them. And it'll probably take us 6 to 8, 9 months to really get to the point where we feel like the system is accurate and working the way it's supposed to. One of the biggest reasons for us is that because we're such a low volume facility, we don't get to use every part of that system very often. So if there are issues with certain parts of it, we may not know about that for months until that part of the system actually gets used. We have been adding some services to try to increase revenue and offer additional services for the community. Just last week, we started offering sleep medicine. So that's being done through home sleep studies. And we have an arrangement with a neurology group out of Anchorage that is reading those exams. And then starting in December, we'll have a monthly sleep clinic where the doctors will work with any of the patients that need you know, a CPAP or a BiPAP or something like that to help them treat their sleep apnea. We've also got a new arrangement now for durable medical equipment. The hospital is not licensed as a DME provider, so we cannot bill for equipment and supplies that the government considers DME. So if we give somebody crutches or a brace or a splint or something like that, we just give it away. We can't bill for that. So this DME service now will be able to do that. So our staff's working with them, and that company will then do the billing on that. So the hospital's not getting any revenue out of it, but hopefully we'll save some money on expenses of stuff we're giving away because there are no other DME options here in Cordova. We've had an arrangement with a speech therapist to come in on a quarterly basis to provide services to our residents in the nursing home. That person is now interested in potentially coming in and doing more speech therapy services for people in the community as well. So we're working out a contract on that now. We're negotiating a contract with an occupational therapist, which is sort of a physical rehab, almost like physical therapy, but it helps people really get back to being able to function daily on everything from using spoons to eat, how to open doors and things like that. So we're working on that as another service. We're still continuing our physician recruitment. We have right now our physician coverage We're booked all the way through until the end of May completely right now and well into the summer with some other coverage. We've been having some discussions with a couple of physicians, actually 2 physicians that are interested in moving to Cordova to work on sort of a part-time basis, work anywhere from 4 to 6 months out of the year. And then we also have another physician who's interested in moving here and working full-time. So that position's not available until next summer. So we're planning on bringing them up here in April to potentially actually work for a week to be able to see if they like the community and the facility as well. So we've been using what's called locum tenens physicians, which is basically a part-time or temporary physician. We have one physician that's been coming from Anchorage on a routine basis, typically a couple weeks a month now. And Dr. Volk is actually building up a good following as well. So we're continuing to look at ways we can make improvements and generate revenue and reduce our expenses. So I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions.
Do you have an update on the audit?
The audit is, our auditors have told us they will have it completed by the end of this month. But after they told us that, they have then come back and again, they're asking questions now on how our third-party administrator is invoicing us for costs of the health insurance, because the way they're invoicing us is actually not appropriate because they're showing costs on there to the hospital that the hospital does not owe. So the auditors are working directly with them to try to figure out what kind of a system they're coming up with and why they're having those inappropriate amounts on the cost to the hospital.
Other questions, council?
Yeah, I saw the annualized budget for our pharmacy program. How is that getting reimbursed from the city?
As far as
The city being reimbursed?
Can you use the mic, James?
Oh, I'm sorry. How is our pharmacy on reimbursing the city?
actually, Alan and I have been talking about that, and it looks like here soon we'll have the first $50,000 of that was scheduled to be paid coming back before the end of the year.
How much higher is 913,000 over our projected revenue the first year when we started?
Of the pharmacy?
Yes.
I would have to go back and pull that pro forma that we put together. I'm thinking we had thought somewhere around 500,000 to 600,000 in business in the first year, but because things ramped up a lot faster, that competition from the other pharmacy was not there. So that's the reason why it picked up so quickly, faster than what we had budgeted for.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, council? Okay, thank you. School board.
Thanks for being here the night before Thanksgiving. I appreciate it. Couple updates. Our volleyball team is going to state. They won regionals. Very proud of them. In addition, our students made a great showing at the Alaska State Music Festival and at the robotics competition last weekend. So it's pretty exciting to see our students having success in multiple areas of their opportunities. One of the things I noticed at regionals was, we have about, 140 students at high school, and we had over 100 volunteers helping put that volleyball tournament on. And that support came from community members, businesses, staff, volunteers, parents, other students. And it was exciting because it gave not only the volleyball students, the volleyball players who were students, but we had students and parents volunteering in the technology side of it, and the live streaming, the graphic design of the programs and the tournament logo, the concessions and finances. So every every area of an event. It was pretty exciting. And I feel like that was Cordova at its best in many ways. And helped us get ready for tip-off and basketball regionals coming up in the next few months. I want to give you a little bit of an update on some of the goals that both the district and the board are working on. So from the district standpoint, they are working on finalizing our strategic plan and coming out with the end product by the end of the year. And we're excited because, and I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to see the process or see where we're at this point, but the goal is to have really an interactive online tool in addition to paper-based descriptions that allow people to really explore what the school's doing, what our goals are, and for them to offer feedback on that. So I'll look forward to what that's going to look like by the end of the year. District's also working on implementing a comprehensive social emotional learning framework, and some of you may have heard about the Wednesday classes, and that's a big piece of that. It's an innovation that all the feedback 90% of the feedback I'm getting is positive. Change can be hard, but staff and the administration worked to put into the curriculum areas where students could more deeply focus on activities that are related to Cordova, related to project-based learning, and deepening their understanding of their core subjects. So everything from engineering to net mending to backcountry cooking, the whole gamut. And it's an effort to do more of that social emotional project-based, place-based learning. They're also reviewing their process for assessing instructional programming and instructional performance to make sure that we are evaluating our instructional practices all the time, to make sure that we're doing it best. So those are the district goals going forward. They've been working on them for a couple of months, but I just wanted to bring them to your attention. The board as a whole is focusing on policy alignment. We're finding that some of our practices and some of our policies are not aligned, and we're not happy with the impact that was having on our students and their performance and their experience. So we're really looking at making sure that best practices and best policies are aligned, particularly in the area of discipline and academic expectations. We're looking at strengthening our financial stability, looking at all our expenses, and really drilling down into what we need, what the community expects, and what we need to have in our fund balance to have a sustainable budget. So I'm mentioning that because I know you all are looking at the same thing and will be considering those aspects as you consider how to fund the school district. And we're also working on our board role in curriculum review and development, and again with that focus on instructional practices and making sure that we're providing the best academic opportunities for our students. So that's a little bit of what we've been working on, and I guess the last thing I would say is our music performances are December 4th at the elementary school and December 11th at the high school. And of course, you're all invited. Any questions? All right, thanks for giving me a little more time tonight.
And thank you for being here on your pre-Thanksgiving evening. Okay, we don't have our student council representative with us tonight, so we have 2 items on the consent calendar. Council want to pull any of those off?
I just have an amendment to the, my absence was unexcused on 7 as a personal.
Sorry.
So with that just clerical change,
Okay.
roll call?
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
James Weiss,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved.
Okay, thank you. Consideration of bids. Have a direction to manager to negotiate a purchase of a utility truck for use in the sewer department.
Mr. Mayor, I move to direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with Kendall Ford to provide one 2018 Ford Gas V8 3/4 ton 4x4 utility truck per the state ITB DOT state equipment fleet for a sum not to exceed $38,078.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just appreciate that we're putting this in, you know, the budget. We're using budgeted monies to buy this equipment. I'd like to see that practice continued with our other enterprise funds. When they need a piece of equipment, when they have a piece of equipment that needs to be replaced, to budget for it and use their own money instead of just coming to us and expecting it out of the permanent fund. Thank you.
A discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Reports of officers. So I don't think I magically included a mayor's report. Had some other things on my schedule this last week. But there was a meeting Monday evening with between CCMC Authority Board and the City Council and the Tribal Council. And I appreciate full attendance by the Tribal Council, nearly full attendance by the City Council, and was disappointed that there weren't more Authority Board members there. They didn't at least indicate ahead of time that they weren't going to be there. It's a very important process, as we're all aware from the discussions in our public hearing. The future state of health services in Cordova is a big part of our budget, and one that we need to devote some effort to. I think I'm just going to leave it at that for now, unless there's any questions. I've been spending quite a bit of time with John Bidney, trying to reach out to the new administration. Frankly, it's been pretty much a brick wall so far, and NBE's been having the same experience, Native Village BIAC. However, we do have some relationships there with Lieutenant Governor Kevin Meyer, and as things start to gel a little bit and we get closer to session, we'll continue to reach out and try to get some engagement there. Probably seen in the news the potential turnover of a lot of state administrative staff and so forth. So just trying to stay out in front of that, and I'll keep you posted as we learn more. Are there any questions for me? Or okay, clerk's report.
Manager first.
Sorry, manager's report. I'm bound and determined to get this order backwards.
As you know, I was at AML last week. The first 2 days was the Managers Association. And the last 3 days were the conference. I'll have a written report for you, as I did in year one regarding that, which I'll send out to you early next week. You know, it's rare that anything strikingly new comes up at these conferences, and it's sort of a yearly conversation about many of the same things. It was really nice to reconnect with some people. I had a meeting with, 2 meetings with our city attorney, met with our lobbyist, John Bidney, met with our insurance representatives from medical insurance, had a nice conversation with them. We got really, really good news on our renewal for 2019. And what else was I gonna say? So I have that written report for you about the AML. I think the overriding theme of the conference was uncertainty about how the administration is going to deal with municipalities and how the legislative majorities, minorities are going to sort out what alliances are going to be formed. And I think that was probably the real theme of it. So I'd be happy to, I would have you know that today Cindy and I did a telephone interview with a potential interim finance director. Lots of Alaska experience, and while we were, after reaching out, we were provided a variety of resumes from a large recruiting firm that's in Illinois. They do interim work. And one of those candidates rose to the top. Again, we Skype interviewed with him this morning, and we've asked the recruiting firm to provide us with details of what a contract would look like with them for a 6-month time frame with a potential 3-month extension. So I'll keep you informed as that moves along. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay, seeing none, clerk's report.
I don't have much. I've just been going from meeting to meeting and advertising for the comprehensive plan committee, the healthcare joint work session that we did. Fisheries advisory met a little while ago, so I've fallen behind in minutes, I'm sorry to say. There was a little bit of volleyball that got in the way of the last set of minutes. And heading out next week for that as well. But thanks for making the work session Tuesday, so I guess I can make that one.
All right. You still have your voice even though the girls won state, or won regional.
I was screaming. I'm sure I was on somebody's video.
Hey, any questions, council? Or? Okay, seeing none. Correspondence is included in the packet. I just wanted to point out on page 17 the award to the Cordova Water Department, and despite the really thin budgets and the cuts the departments have had, we've had some great performance. And I'm just thinking back to the DEC visit to our landfill and their comments on the ground there that it's one of the best managed landfills they've seen in the state. So. And then you see the correspondence that I've sent out. So, right under ordinances and resolutions, ordinance 1171 from the public hearing, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the transfer of $269,000 from the General Reserve Fund to the Refuse Enterprise Fund as a loan for the purchase of a refuse truck and stating the repayment terms for the loan. This is a second reading.
Mayor,
Councilman Allison?
move to adopt ordinance 1171.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. I guess I don't consider this necessarily completely asking the city to spend their money from the permanent fund on something that is just gonna go away like the hospitals. I consider this an investment of a portion of the city's permanent reserve with a set interest rate, just like a bond would be if we were to purchase bonds with as part of our portfolio. Normally we don't get to select items in our portfolio individually. However, in this case, we have the option to, and I think that the city enterprise fund with a plan for paying it back and increasing revenues in order to do that is a good investment of a portion of our permanent fund. So I guess I don't consider this a gift from the permanent fund, more of an investment of a portion of those, of that revenue from, or of that money from the permanent fund. So I support this because there is a plan and it does bring interest back to our permanent fund.
Discussion, council? Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I don't doubt the need for a new garbage truck. You know, we talk a lot about deferred maintenance, and I agree that we need to be replacing equipment. I just disagree that we need to be taking it out of the permanent fund, whether it's an investment or not. I feel like this should have been something that was budgeted for, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into trying to budget for paying it off in the future. I would just prefer to see this enterprise fund save up for it and purchase it themselves, just, I mean, in a similar fashion to what the sewer department brought to us. So I'll be voting no on this unless you guys can change my mind.
Councilman Guerin?
To have the money there in the enterprise funds, to be able to do this stuff, we're the same way down in the harbor and stuff. We've set the rates for all this stuff, and we haven't set them high enough to be able to accrue the cash to do this. So it's kind of on us. So I don't see that we have any other option. We can no longer bail and haul it any other way. So we've got to have enough equipment to get it out the road to do this. We've got a payback program. We're looking at raising rates on our enterprise funds to start covering some of these costs. I'll be voting yes.
And there's a difference between budgeting, you know, $35,000 from the enterprise fund budget for that truck versus $270.
I was having a hard time hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was saying there's a difference between having budgeted finances for a $35,000 purchase versus a $270,000 purchase as well.
Okay. Further discussion, council? Manager Lanning?
Councilman Allison, did you pick an alternative?
Well, we had picked an alternative the last time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already entered in
Okay.
to the body of
I just didn't remember. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So we were alternative B, 7 years for.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right?
Never mind.
Correct.
added on, be it further.
Just for refreshing my memory, our last UBS report was less than 0.5%, I think, for what we've made so far this year. I think, is that scratch anybody's memory?
Yeah, we were
0.0.
we were doing real good in some of our funds.
Some years it's up, some years it could be down, but you know, this is guaranteed 4% back to the permanent fund out of an enterprise fund, which should pay, you know, reasonable interest rates. So I still don't have any problem with the investment.
You know, this was a used truck, I think, when it was purchased. And it's been, we bought it in 03, 06,
05.
05. So it's been 13 years with a used truck. I mean, we've been 13 years to save the money, and we're just, at this point, we're out of time. We are where we are.
Okay, further discussion, Councilman Jones.
You know, I mean, we just had a $1.8 million ask from a hospital that's not quite insolvent yet, but not, I mean, it's not paying its own way. We've got asks coming up from the harbor, we've got asks from the school, we've got asks for money all around, and in just my 2 years on this council, we've spent over $1 million out of this permanent fund in one way, shape, or another, and I just don't want to keep going back to it for these types of things. And I know we've been making progress to, you know, raise rates and get our enterprise funds to hold their own weight, but I think that we already have a truck. It's been working. It doesn't take a lot of maintenance to keep it on the road, yes, but it's going to take 20 years to, it's what, $10,000 a year is what it was estimating on maintenance costs with staff time and parts. That's, you know, 20 years to save enough money to pay for a new truck. So I think we could hold off 2 or 3 years until the enterprise fund can afford to do it on its own. And yeah, that's the way I look at it. We've got a lot of other things that need money too. And we do have an option. We're still gonna get the trash out there. We already have a truck. So.
So Councilman Burton.
Yeah, I actually have a hard time with the expenditure at this point in time as well. Though I totally appreciate Mr. Allison's position that he voiced. The need for it, I don't doubt, like Mr. Jones said, but also just the constant expenditures of the permanent fund are troubling. At one point in time, we had a cost analysis of what it would mean to not do this, and I think before I can vote on it, I need to see that again. Before I can vote for it, we're purchasing a new truck. I understand that it takes maintenance, and there was some kind of an amount. I just don't remember what it is, and it's not in this packet.
I can't answer that. I mean, the only thing I'll say is that.
Say, Sam, could you do me a favor? And, yeah. So Sam is the acting or interim public works director, acting as the interim public works director. James, so she's.
So I can't answer your question off the top of my head, but I will say that it may cost $10,000 a year now to maintain that truck. The truck is only getting older, and things are going to continue to deteriorate. Also, the refuse money spent a serious amount of cash, and maybe Mr. Allison will remember this, $100 grand, $90,000 when we built that additional place so they could have hot water in a bathroom. So I disagree that they haven't been putting money towards making themselves better. You know, sure, you can let it roll, and when the truck breaks down, then we'll be back here in a crisis mode asking for a truck. So just let it out of that.
Okay. Councilman Guard?
Just for information services or information, what are the lead times on a truck like this once we do order it? I'm sure they haven't sitting on the shelf 6 months.
I believe the packet says 6 months.
I believe it does too. So we, not only do we have to wait that long, and hope the truck makes it for 6 months. The refuse department is also finishing paying a loan off in 19, which is why the first payment was asked to be in 2020. So they've already been paying 40 grand out for a previous loan that I'm not even sure what it was for because it was from 2008. John didn't know, but so we're trying to come together and move forward. And as I think I heard earlier, fix things that have been done in the past. Any other questions?
Council, any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, maybe to the manager. What effect does this have if we were to table this to the next meeting for more consideration, or refer back to staff until the next meeting, or something like that? Because I think there's a couple things that need to be ironed out financially first. I understand this need. I want to be able to say yes. I just need to be able to do it a little easier.
It'll go up in price, probably.
Sam just said it'll probably go up in price between now and then, for one thing. From a procedural...
Now on December 5th, or whatever the next meeting was?
Well, we've had this in the hopper for...
Well, the first, I think it was August.
Yeah, the first time
It's in your packet.
we asked for it was August. And I think those bids are only good for 90 days, 60 days. So we read that rest. So far we've been able to avoid that, but you know, that's certainly not a certainty, but that's a risk. In terms of the procedural part of it, Susan, can you help me? I don't, just send it back to staff. I don't know what happens.
Yeah, if you want to refer it to staff for the next regular meeting, it'll take another public hearing and reading, and that's it. So spending money, appropriating, oh yeah, permanent fund 1 doesn't take the 30 days.
Well, the reason I ask is it puts it past our next budget work session when we can kind of iron out some of the bigger financial picture issues. And I think it would be easier. I think it would be easier at that point in time. Now, you said that this was a 90-day bid, and the first time it came before us was August. So wouldn't we already be outside of the 90-day?
So I talked to the salesman today, and he extended the bid when I wrote this first, at the previous meeting when I wrote this. I talked to him at that point, and he said, okay, we'll extend the bid to this. I can't guarantee you anything past the requirement that it's gonna take. They're gonna have a price increase. They've already had one on the steel embargo. I don't know what that was, but he was able to hold it. It's just a risk, your choice. I don't know how much it'll be, and I don't know what it would mean. And if you're gonna refer it back to staff with some questions, like really clear direction on what you're asking from me.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I guess I still go back to, I don't consider this a gift from the permanent fund. I mean, are we gonna sit here at the next meeting and decide not to invest $8 million in UBS and let them buy bonds or stocks or real estate or whatever else they're doing with our $8 million? Or, you know, or we can decide to invest $269,000 of that in an enterprise fund that we own, that we know is going to raise the money to be able to pay back that loan. Sure, that's a risk. The garbage department could go out of business, or I suppose, or, you know, for whatever else, everything's a risk. But I think the risk is way less than the money the millions we're investing with UBS and letting them decide what they want to do based upon a broad policy that we've given them. I don't think it's out of line to invest in ourselves a little bit. It's different. The enterprise funds have never had a problem with following through with their agreement to pay back anything to the permanent fund. The Harbor Department has done it before, and they are making those payments, and they've raised their revenue in order to do that. The Refuse Department, they're different than the hospital. You know, the hospital is a drain on the permanent fund. It's not an investment in anything other than the health services of the community. It's not going to get repaid other than in health services. So I think, well, prices are going to go up. That's a given. How much they go up is undetermined, but anyway, I think it's a good investment for part of our permanent fund.
So, Council.
Well, you having said that definitely reminds me that the travel lift would not be in Cordova form for the same structure of loan that goes back to the permanent fund to purchase that, and that's done well. So I don't know, Mr. Jones, I guess, chew on that for a second.
So Council, I just want to remind Council that this is because the loan would come from the permanent fund, it requires a supermajority, so either 7 councilmen or 6 councilmen plus the mayor. So I've heard 1 opposed and 1 that wants to maybe delay, and I would recommend postponing if it's really a matter of delaying. but I think it'd also be good to hear from the rest of the councilmen, so you give each other an idea where you're going with this. Councilman Guard.
Yeah, we're all struggling with this after some of the big ticket items that came down. And dealing with the hospital is a big thing to choke down in its own right. But if we let the function of what's happening there financially scare us away from doing other business that we should be doing for the city, we're not doing ourselves any services. This isn't just throwing money away, as Councilmember Allison said, out of the permanent fund. It's an investment in us, and it's an investment in our future. We'll see the dollars returned to the permanent fund on it. I know it's a scary thing after everything else we've been looking at, but don't let the finances we saw earlier scare us away from doing business that we should be doing.
Okay, Councilman Meyer, because she hasn't had a chance to, and then Councilman Jones.
I was just gonna comment that this isn't something that's new. It hasn't been just thrown on our laps, and I will be voting in favor if it goes to a vote today. Mainly just because all the reasons that have been stated in favor of it already. It's gonna be paid back, and there's a plan to do it.
Councilman Jones?
I guess I have a question for staff through the manager. What was the interest rate charged to the harbor on the travel lift? Does anybody know that offhand? 0, okay. And then I was also curious, another question for staff, is there any value in selling the old truck that could help repay this quicker?
Well, I think anytime we dispose of something, we try to sell it and make as much money from it as we can. You know, we're just in the process of acquiring a Forest Service used vehicle, much like the one that Chief drives right now for the PD, and you know, we'll dispose of our worst police car in that group. And you know, we were fortunate to get this at a really reasonable cost with good miles, but that's, you know, the trash truck is a specialized thing. I think I would agree that, you know, the issues we're facing financially in this particular issue, really in my mind are separated and unrelated. This is a revenue generator, it's an enterprise fund, it's going to pay it back, and so we from time to time have bigger losses on our investments as a whole because of drops in interest rates and other things than the $269,000. I think we had, you know, we had worse problems than that in one of our investment funds last quarter. And so this is a pretty sure thing.
And I guess one last question. We had in our current budget for 800,000 in the fish tax line item. We received 1.5. Could it be where we just, instead of dipping into the permanent fund to buy this truck, could we just use those additional revenues?
Well, again, I will say to you that we have been having cash flow problems. At this exact juncture right here, I can't tell you our relative position in terms of cash flow. One of the things that I hope to do when we get a new finance director is sort some of that out for you. Can I say that, can we afford $269,000? We take that risk. I don't know how to give you the answer right now. But this is a sure thing. This is not going to impact our organization in terms of how we consider the general fund budget. We're moving forward. If this goes according to plan, and I've already indicated to you that my recommendation is 5% a year for the next 5 years in all the enterprise funds, you could realistically have this one purchase and not have to make another purchase like this again, because your fund would replenish itself and provide for capital replacement. The timing of this is what it is. If the truck breaks down on the road, that's a whole different issue. It would be like saying, you know, we have the same issue in the general fund. You know, we have one of our big loaders that needs to rebuild the pins and bushings and things, and it's $100,000 fix. What if we don't do that? What if it breaks down and we have 20 inches of wet snow? Somebody's gonna have to be there to deal with it, and somehow we're gonna have to deal with it, but boy, it sure makes things tough. I'd be happy to refer the phone calls to you. No, just kidding.
I guess one last question on this before we go to a vote. We've been talking a lot about bears in the last few months. They're still out. And we've been talking about potentially moving forward with trying to bear-proof dumpsters. There's been some discussion over moving some higher risk neighborhoods over to you know, having the bear-proof dumpsters instead of household trash collection and whatever to try to deter the problem. Would this truck work for all that type of discussion? Or if we get bear-proof containers, does it have the arm to dump those? I mean, are we gonna be having to get another truck if we decide to do some bear-proofing?
Boy, you got me. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I haven't been involved in those discussions because I wasn't in this position there, but as far as the arms on the trucks, I mean, we had this conversation 3 or 4 years ago about doing that and lifting and doing, and there's a few issues within town that make it difficult if they're individualized cans. And my understanding with those cans is you have to absolutely physically be able to delatch them. So you have to get out of the truck regardless. That's my understanding at this point in time. I haven't had time to look into it now. Also, if we move towards the idea of a centralized dumpster for areas that are having some serious bear problems, this truck is made, that's what it does. It dumps dumpsters. So yeah, it would be beneficial to that. Bear-proof dumpster lids, if they're heavy, then you don't deal with getting out and taking them up. If they're in a aluminum metal, where like the Powder House has, where they're clipped, where they clip them when they have bears around and they haven't had any issues there, then again, you have to get out of the truck to deal with it. Or hopefully the customer will have it undone before you get there. But there is always the case where you gotta get out of the truck where somebody forgot to do it. So, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I just want to make sure as we continue with those discussions into the spring before the next bear season that this truck will work for us moving forward if we decide to make some changes.
Yeah, and I think we'll be having those discussions before spring because that'll be a little late.
Any further discussion, council? Hearing none, roll call vote.
So on ordinance 1171, David Allison,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
James Weiss,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries
Okay,
7-0.
motion carries. Ordinance 1172 is the next item. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, declaring the tax foreclosed property commonly known as the Cordova Hotel located at 604 First Street, Cordova, Alaska 99574, and legally described as lots 3 and 4, block 6, original town site of Cordova, Alaska. Records of the Cordova Recording District, 3rd Judicial District, State of Alaska, parcel number 02-173-503, formerly owned by Dorian Wickham and deeded to the city by clerk's deed, is not required for a public purpose, and 2, authorizing and directing its sale. Second reading.
Move that we adopt ordinance 1172.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilman Allison. Would you like to discuss the motion?
We certainly don't need it, so we might as well move it along.
Okay. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I did. I support it. I don't think we need it either. I mean, it's not a public necessity for sure. I just want to be sure that we, because as there was some confusion in the audience earlier tonight, and as the mayor explained, that we will be going through whatever the city's disposal processes are. Because as I read this, it appeared to me on first glance anyway that this was indeed authorizing the manager to sell at his discretion, and I want to just be sure that we go through our land disposals process when we do, and as was discussed, you know, the longer we keep it, the more maintenance we're going to have to do. So, although nothing moves quick in government, I would like to see us proceed with this as expeditedly as possible.
Further discussion, council? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
On 1172, James Weiss,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
Jeff Guard.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, next item is council concurrence of mayor's appointments to the Comprehensive Plan Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Well, I might not have written it in there. Did I write the name in there? That's what we were putting. Is there one?
Page 28 says that Mayor Copeland will be bringing the names to tonight's meeting.
Yes, and the one we do have is
Okay.
Olivia
Yeah, so we have Olivia Kelly as student representative.
Carroll.
Olivia Carroll is a student representative. I'm trying to fill a 12th one. I've been reaching out to the Filipino community. I haven't got a name as of yet, but I'm going to try to fill that last seat there. So concurrence tonight would be with Olivia Carroll. Discussion, council?
Did we have a motion in a second?
We did, I'm sorry. We had a motion from Councilman Schaefer and second Ellison. Right.
Other. Right. I second.
Okay, motion Ellison, second Schaefer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, 2 minutes.
It doesn't matter.
You can have it.
Okay. Motion Guard, second Schaefer, sorry.
Those 3.
Got it. Sorry.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, Olivia Carroll's appointed to Comprehensive Plan Committee. Next item, council concurrence of mayor's appointments to the Harbor Commission, Library Board, Planning Commission, and Parks and Rec Commission.
Move to concur
Second.
as listed in the packet.
Memo.
We have a motion of concurrence, a motion to concur, and there was a second?
Yes.
Okay, discussion?
I just appreciate everybody putting their names in to serve. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we have the appointments as included in the packet. I also want to thank those who volunteered. We actually had more letters of interest than there were spaces available, and I generally get back to everyone who's applied before they come to council to explain the selection process, and I haven't gotten to a couple of those, so I just publicly apologize. I do plan on getting back to those, but we thank all of the volunteers for volunteering for these boards and commissions. So next item is pending agenda calendar and elected and appointed officials list. And we've already added a November 27th meeting, Tuesday the 27th, 6 to 8 p.m. for continuing the budget discussion. Other pending agenda items?
Yeah, the fair discussion.
Yeah, just wanted to ask that.
Okay, and I know Charlotte Westing at Fish and Game was hoping to be a part of that discussion. and pulled into that, so, maybe we can just, flag it on the pending agenda and give staff time to coordinate with her to,
And who, and NVE also?
NVE, our refuse department, there's a solution for, they're talking about transfer stations, we're about to purchase a new vehicle. And I'd kind of like to see a use for that. Also, yeah, NVE for what is it? Just refuse clearance as well as, representative for the Forest Service.
Or service, and one from law enforcement, because I know that they had to deal with it a lot this summer, so maybe we can.
Anyway, there's available funds, there's secure rural funding, I believe,
So,
that we can find.
so police department or troopers?
I mean, I was just thinking that maybe the chief of police, since they've had to deal with it a lot this summer, he might have something to say on the topic.
NVE, the refuse department, Charlotte Westing, and Forest Service?
Councilman Jones?
I guess just so staff has a little bit of something to work on information to bring to this meeting, I personally would like to see the information. We're already provided it once on bear proofing all the dumpsters and what it would cost, and then also what the refuse department has in its depreciation fund balance. That information would help, I think, that discussion. So, thank you.
So, I'm just trying to, so the request is basically to have a work session, is that the idea? Okay.
We already have one coming up on the 5th. We have PBS coming, right? And Aegis and Associates.
Councilman Jones?
I guess just one suggestion I would have then, if we're gonna have a full work session on this, it should be after the first of the year, so we can get the budget past us. So that's gonna be a lift.
I think that's a good suggestion. That's kind of where I was going with it. This is how this is prioritized and with the budget in front of you, so.
I would say January, because we definitely want to get on this before spring as well, so.
Okay. I'll put it on the pending agenda for January.
Okay.
I'll list together of all those people, so I can contact.
Okay, great.
So the 27th, 6 to 8. Then next regular after that, we'll have on the 5th, the work session with PBS and Aegis, regular meeting after that. Are we gonna aim at something for the budget, or do we have to see how each work session goes? We're gonna aim at voting on it and approving it on the 19th. We have to do it by December 28th. Or the last budget the manager presented becomes approved. If council doesn't by 3 days before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so, and then we have on the 6th, we also have that joint, that next joint work session with the medical.
Yes, which we don't have a location on that yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we do.
I think I heard the
Pioneer again?
Pioneer, yeah. So just pencil that in.
It's on the calendar. I should make more out of it.
Okay.
So we have to have 2 readings on the budget, right?
No, one reading.
Just 1 reading, okay.
But are we doing the fee schedule simultaneously? But we might be bringing the harbor fee schedule on the 5th, just to coincide with the next meeting is also gonna have the bond resolution and the 0.5% raw fish tax resolution.
And there will also be the E911 surcharge resolution on the 4th as well.
And addressing.
What's that?
And addressing.
Well, it's all in the E911 fund. The object is to do the addressing of the E911. The money can be used for the addressing portion of it.
Okay, and just while I'm thinking about appointed officials and so forth, when's the declaration opening and deadline, or where's a declaration for, and
That would have been good for me to put up there.
I don't mean.
I feel like it's about, I think it might be January 4th.
Okay, close enough. I was just trying to
It's coming right.
get a rough idea. Okay, great. So let's see, we got quite a few meetings stacked up. Maybe we can just circulate an email to council, given at least for the next 3 or 4. And let's look at just coming out of the meeting on the 27th, the workshop on the 27th with an idea for, let's make that one of the tasks is develop a calendar for budget, so, okay. All right, thanks. Anything else for pending agenda? Sounds like plenty.
There should be at the next one also CIP list.
Yes.
Put that on there, should I, well, you don't really want to wait too long
Yeah.
before the session. I can circulate the most recent one, which I can't remember
Yeah,
when.
why don't we at least put the CIP list in the December 5th packet, and we can take a look at it.
Okay, okay.
Also, it's not unusual to have Bitney come to either when we're talking through that, or at least call in. And of course, usually there's a little bit of clarity about where the administration might be heading, so that governor's budget comes out towards the end of December, I think. Leif, does that show how many people are actually watching online?
It can, but I don't have it on right now.
Okay, great, just curious. Okay, so we got a pending agenda. I know. Audience participation.
Wendy Rainey, 2500 Orca Road. Just a side note for your bear discussion moving forward. My husband has years of experience with wildlife tracking, and when the bears were at their worst, we offered Fish and Game free transport for any problem bears to be darted, and we would transport them out of Cordova for free. And the conversation was turned down, and we were told that the numbers showed that that was not accurate, but I believe that that should be brought forth in the discussion because the numbers that they're dealing with are an older male bear that was transported and did make his way back to Cordova. The bear problem that we were dealing with this year are young bears that haven't established their territory yet, and that was the biggest issue. And I think that we'd also be willing to be a part of that conversation moving forward to try to limit the number of bear kills in town and see what we can do with possibly transporting them. We'd be open to discussing a free transport in the future as well.
Okay, thank you. Further audience participation?
Chris Ballin, 607 Birch Street. I just want to thank every one of you for getting us a new garbage truck. I know that several departments have budgeted for new vehicles. We try to do that. And our fleet's aging, and without us moving forward and getting new equipment, it prevents me from doing my job to the fullest extent. So appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Further audience comments?
Oh, and thanks for the vote of confidence for those 3 positions, I think.
Okay. So we have a couple of executive sessions, so we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Do we want to do council comments first?
Why don't we do council comments first? It's a good suggestion. Oh, in fact, it's on the agenda, isn't it? Thank you, Councilman Allison. Council comments, why don't we start online, Councilman Burton?
Sorry, real quick. No, I just wanted to thank everybody for stepping up and volunteering to fill those positions on boards and commissions. Often that's a challenge. It was refreshing to hear that we had more applicants than positions available. Hopefully that holds true in March when the general election comes up too. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Gard?
No comment.
Councilman Meyer?
Thanks for everyone for coming out the day before Thanksgiving, and also, I don't know if everyone went to the sobriety celebration, but I thought it went really well. And there's always next year if you missed it. And I've also been pretty happy about how the comprehensive plan is going. So if anybody hasn't filled out the survey, I think the word has been put out there, but at least I've been happy with the updates and how the process has been going so far.
Councilman Ellison?
Yeah, just pass on congratulations again to the water department for their work on that award. Thanks again for volunteering all the time, and one smart aleck remark that's not really totally smart alecky is when we transport the bears, we need to transport a couple of totes of fish along with them, and maybe they'll stay there.
Councilman Schaefer?
Just reiterate, well done to the water department, and thank you everyone for stepping up to be on the commissions, and happy Thanksgiving.
Councilman Jones?
Yeah, just echo the comments before me. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks for bearing with me on the trash truck discussion, and appreciated the points that were brought up, especially the one about the travel lift. That resonated. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. See you next time.
Councilman Weiss?
Thank you to volunteers for boards and commissions again. Congratulations for our water department on their award. And I feel like our school put on a really great regional volleyball tournament, and good luck to them at state, and thank you volunteers for that.
Yes, thank you, council, for finding a path to fix their gym floor too. Give us a leg up. Now next item on the agenda is executive session.
One at a time.
Yeah.